الهيئة العامة للسياحة والآثار. ملتقى السفر والاستثمار السياحي.
My name is Chris Stone. I'm an academic. I work at Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK, and I'm very pleased to be here at the tourism investment market today. I should introduce myself. I work at UK University and I teach on a course to train managers for the tourism industry. I teach on a degree called Tourism Management, which we attract about 100 students a year, maybe 100 students a year to study tourism management at Manchester Metropolitan. Okay, thank you. I also work as tourism advisor for the European Commission. I work as external examiner for tourism universities in Asia, the Caribbean and Europe. I do some review work for the European Commission and for academic journals. And I'm a fellow of various international academic societies. My talk today is just to give you an idea of the plan. The plan is going to be a quick look at trends in tourism in the 21st century. And then my key focus is going to be on digital technologies at tourist destinations. I'm going to offer you my thoughts on digital sharing economy apps or applications and social networking services. How are these going to change? What impact are they going to have on tourist destinations? And specifically, I'm going to look at two quite well-known applications. One's called Uber, which looks at transport of the destination, and the second one's called Airbnb, which looks at accommodation of the destination. These are both from the United States of America. A little bit about how the visitor experience is going to change at destinations, and then open the floor really and ask a few questions about how these new technologies might change tourism in Saudi Arabia in the longer term. A few issues, and then a look at the future. So this is the outline of what I hope to say this evening. And I'm very happy to take questions afterwards or discussion after the presentation. And this is based on a research project that I'm undertaking. I was asked to do by your Commission for Tourism and Antiquities. This is the current research project I'm undertaking at Manchester Metropolitan, funded by the UK government. So it's a research project funded by Research Councils UK, which provides money for university research. So just to mention a couple of key trends in tourism in the 21st century. Tourism is nearly 10% of the world economy. We think maybe about 10%. So it's a very big industry, and yet one that can be a little bit invisible. So it's a major industry. Globally, maybe it supports 270 million jobs. That's a really big industry. Maybe 1 in 11 jobs worldwide is in tourism or related industries. So this is a very major undertaking. And estimated growth rate of 4% per year for the next 10 years. So this is the major industry, and one which is very attractive for investment. This is a graph, this is a projected graph produced by the World Tourism Organization. As we can see, this shows international tourism and its growth since 1950. In 1950, there was very little international tourism. Here we are today. There's more than a billion international tourist visits per year. And the forecast is for the tourism industry to continue expanding. So this is a very attractive industry, and it's one which most countries in the world are participating in. I think everybody will have heard the term globalization. Tourism is a globalized, or increasingly a globalized industry. We know that globalization refers to flows of capital, money around the world, information, ideas, cultural values perhaps, goods and services, and of course globalization also involves movement of people. So tourists and tourism are part of globalization as well. And we're seeing new destinations around the world too. 10 days ago, I was in a fairly new destination. 10 days ago, I went to Singapore. And I took a few photographs. This is a brand new development in Singapore. This is an attraction at the edge of the city in Singapore. These are big greenhouses. Inside, there's a jungle in both of these big artificial greenhouses. And just behind them, this is the park. This is an eco park, a nature park. But it's a nature park in a city constructed for tourists, for domestic tourists and for international tourists. And a pretty extraordinary place, a new attraction in what is really still a new destination. So all around the world, slowly, places are becoming destinations. This is just some of the 3,000 airports of the world. So tourism is globalizing. It's a globalization, part of the globalization trend. Another key trend, the global middle class, as we say in Britain. There are more and more people who want to travel and who want to become international tourists. Maybe a growth in 3 times in the number of so-called middle class people around the world over the next 15 years. These people want to travel, they want to see the world, and there's going to be 3 times more of them in just 15 years. And we can think of emerging markets like India and China and so on. So what's this got to do with digital technologies, the phone in your pocket? Richard Sharpley, who's a big tourism academic, Richard Sharpley says there's 3 things that drive tourism. 3 key things which have really driven tourism since about 1950. 3 key things. Money or wealth, enabling people to travel. Time, people increasingly having time in their day, in their year to travel. But number 3, a really big one, of course, is technology. And Richard Sharpley says these are the 3 key things which have driven tourism and boosted tourism in the past 50, 60 years. I'm going to look at technology. Today, I'm looking at technology. So, of course, the diffusion of information and communication technologies, ICTs, increased information flows, and e-commerce, what we call, I'm sure you've all heard the term, electronic commerce, e-commerce, and online technologies. That's what we're looking at today. Have major impacts on tourism and hospitality. E-commerce, digital technologies of all sorts, having a very major impact on tourism and the hospitality industries. And yet this is a fairly new impact. 10 years ago, a major tourism academic wrote that tourism and hospitality didn't really want to adopt new methods, new tools. This is a traditional industry, didn't really want to adopt the new electronic technologies. Small companies didn't really want to know about new technology. SME is an abbreviation for small, medium-sized enterprises, small companies. So particularly small companies didn't really want to know about new technology. But now, of course, new technology is proving to be a very major force in the tourism industry. And I'm going to look at two key applications in what they call the digital sharing economy. And these apps and these technologies are easy and cheap. 10 years ago they weren't easy, they weren't cheap. Today they're easy and cheap. So let's have a look at their impact. And we describe them as mediators in the market. As we'll see, application mediates between the tourist and the destination, between the tourist and the hotel, between the tourist and the taxi. So that's what we're going to be looking at for the next half hour. And I think these new applications are going to revolutionise the visitor experience at destinations right around the world. Not just Europe, but Middle East, indeed right around the world. And the key issue is, which I hope to think about a little bit, will they generate additional economic gains? Will they produce additional economic growth? I'll try and have a look at that along the way. So tourism as an activity encourages production of goods and services. The tourist creates demand, demand is satisfied, and everybody's happy. And we know that tourism can provide a boost. Tourism can provide a boost for individuals, me and you, for communities, villages, towns, and local economies and national economies. Tourism is quite powerful. Tourism is labour intensive. It employs a lot of people. And it's dominated by small businesses, small, medium-sized enterprises. Right around the world, tourism is a small business. We say the markets are contestable. It's not so hard to set up a business in tourism. Tourism markets are contestable. And it doesn't cost much money to get into tourism or get out of tourism for a small business. So, in some ways, tourism is an easy business to get into. And with the new sharing economy applications, apps, and social networking, the tourism industry is getting more successful at marketing. Marketing is easier and cheaper now than it ever was in the past, which is good for the industry and good for tourism. Small businesses have a much better ability to reach the tourist, to get to an individual tourist, to sell accommodation, to sell transport, to sell trips, to sell attractions. It's much, much easier now than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Even for the smallest companies. And that's from two big recent academics. And networking is what the information and communication technology revolution is all about. People talking to each other, people talking to businesses. And we're going to look at social media as two things: websites, but also apps, applications on your mobile phone, which enable users to share, create and share content, or to participate in this networking. That's crucial. to what I'm talking about today, networking. People talking to people, people talking to businesses. And for instance, everybody's heard of Facebook, everybody's heard of Twitter, everybody's heard of TripAdvisor, which is all about tourism. TripAdvisor is all about tourism. This is the front page of TripAdvisor 2 or 3 days ago, where you can plan and book your perfect trip, whatever your perfect trip is, probably to just about anywhere in the world. TripAdvisor is all about that. We talk about UGC, user-generated content, on TripAdvisor. I write something about London. You write something about Saudi Arabia. User-generated content. And it's very powerful. Let me show you how powerful user-generated content is. There was a hotel, quite a big hotel, in a major UK city. It was a big hotel. It wasn't a very good hotel. The quality of the product was pretty bad. And it became a well-publicised national disgrace. Everybody heard about this hotel because it got so many bad reviews on TripAdvisor. It got 200 really bad reviews that it got into the newspapers, it got onto the TV, and that hotel had real serious business problems. Hundreds of negative reviews. It was sad, but it was true. I can't tell you which hotel it was, and since then they've improved their product. But that shows how powerful social networking is, how powerful user-generated content can be. Now it's a much better hotel, but 3 or 4 years ago it was a real problem. And that shows how powerful this all this stuff is. So companies need social media. Companies need to monitor Twitter. They need to keep an eye on TripAdvisor. What are people saying about your hotel, about your destination, about your tour company? Companies need to do it as well. So it's good for tourists, it's good for companies. And companies need to respond to their online communities, as we say, their communities of tourists. Hotel companies need to be ready to respond, to say, we're sorry, we fixed the problem, it's okay now. They need to do that. Let me show you another example. Tourist information. In the past, when we went on holiday, we had a book, didn't we? If you went on holiday, you had a guidebook. And it was written by Michelin, or published by Michelin, Berlitz, Bratt. You can still buy guidebooks. But now, of course, guidebooks, the whole guidebook industry has been disrupted. We say creatively disrupted by your smartphone. Your smartphone is now a guidebook, of course. Visit Dublin. Dublin is the capital of Ireland, and the tourist authority is called Visit Dublin. Let me show you what Visit Dublin is doing to attract visitors and give them information about Dublin when they get there. This is the old version, this is the old world, this is the book about Dublin. Good book, I'm sure. But of course now, there's a book, the information on your smartphone as well. Here's your Visit Dublin official mobile guide. And if you're walking around Dublin in the Irish Republic, you see this is quite a famous tourist landmark in Dublin. You can use your phone, and your phone will identify that tourist landmark. It will tell you what it is. It's called the Spire of Dublin. It's a commemorative landmark. And it will tell you exactly what it is, and it will give you information about it just by pointing your phone at the landmark. It will tell you what it is, what it means, and give you a lot of information on that attraction. Augmented reality. So it's reality plus. And a colleague of mine at Manchester, he's doing work on that now using these apps. So, visitor information provision, perfect. You don't need the book anymore. You've got everything you need on your phone. Some places there might be a problem with access to the internet, but even that's not such a problem anymore. Chester is a city near Manchester. Chester is about 50 kilometres from Manchester. They've got their own internet in the town centre. If you go to Chester, it's an old English town. Chester looks like this. The tourist is wandering about the town. The tourist wants to use Wi-Fi. Easy in Chester. In the city of Chester, you can walk down the street and there's Wi-Fi throughout the centre of the city. You're connected in Chester. As you walk down the street, you're connected in Chester. This map shows where you can pick up a connection in the street. And the tourist can pick up everything they need to know from their smartphone as they walk down the street in Chester. So, a perfect example, I think, of the digital economy in tourism. There is a bit of a problem. UGC, user-generated content, is peer-to-peer. It's me to you. There's nobody in between. There's nobody. I can publish information. It's not mediated. There's nobody editing my information. So the quality of content can be variable. It can be good quality, it can be poor quality content. So that's a problem for destinations. Let me show you in Manchester. Manchester is where I live. Manchester is a big city. TripAdvisor said, which is the number one restaurant in Manchester? And the number one restaurant in Manchester was voted as this one. It's not even in the centre of Manchester. It was in a suburb of Manchester. It's not the most beautiful suburb, but this was voted the number one restaurant. It's this place. It's an Italian restaurant. It's not the most beautiful restaurant in the world. It's okay. This is the guy who owns it. He's a nice guy. His restaurant was voted number one in Manchester. It's a little restaurant. He was lucky. Everybody likes his restaurant, but they might have voted for this one in the centre of town. It was ranked better than this one in the centre of town. This is actually a Thai restaurant, but it's a very good restaurant. This is another top class restaurant in the centre of town. You might expect this would be the number one restaurant in Manchester, but no, it was the guy in the suburb whose restaurant was voted number one. So, user-generated content can do funny things. People vote the way they want to vote. It doesn't always end up with the results you might imagine. So, a destination, mobile social media, your phone. It's a combination of your phone and social media on the web, on the internet. This is what I want to look at today for the rest of my talk. And this whole new revolution is offering big opportunities for companies, for big companies, right the way down to the smallest company. Digital economy technologies, we might say. And there's a lot of them too. I stole this from the web. This shows the range of social media which are of relevance. There's a huge range now of social media of relevance to tourism and other industries. I won't look at them all, just going to look at two. So maybe a consumer wants a personalised holiday. They want a holiday their way. They want a holiday that they want, not maybe the holiday that somebody else wants. They want a personalised holiday. And the new media influences two things for our tourist. Firstly, our new media... It's a train. Firstly, the new media makes people want to go on holiday. It energizes demand. I see pictures of Saudi Arabia. I see pictures of Singapore. I see pictures of South America. I see pictures of China on the web. I want to go on holiday. I want to go to these places. So I'm motivated to go on holiday. The second part, effectors of demand. So I can learn about Singapore. I can gain knowledge about China even before I leave my house. So firstly, I'm pushed to go on holiday. And secondly, the information's there. I know what it's going to be like if I go to China. I know what the food's going to be like, how the money works, transport, even before I leave. So this is very powerful. And I don't need to buy a book that's 5 years old, 10 years old. I don't need to buy a book. It's all there. So this is very powerful for destinations. So I'm going to look at two apps, applications as we say. Have people heard of Uber? The application. Okay, sir, thank you. This is for transportation, travel at the destination. Number two, Airbnb. This is for accommodation. They're both from the USA. And so for two key things the tourist needs transport, the tourist needs accommodation, of course. Now, on your phone, let's have a look. Okay, I'm going to go through those. So firstly, this is the first app. You can download it tonight. It's called Uber, and it's for travel, taxis. Number two, Airbnb. This is for accommodation, somewhere to stay. For the tourist, somewhere to stay when they're traveling. Uber is only 6, 7, 8 years old, and it's one of the best known tourism applications. Uber offers ride sharing. You share your ride like a taxi. It's a lot like a taxi, but it's not exactly a taxi. But it is increasingly competing in the taxi market, as we'll see, in London, New York, San Francisco, right around the world. Via your mobile phone. If I'm in London, I can hail a taxi, or I can go onto my app, Uber, and I find a driver, a private car driver perhaps. We call it crowdsourced, somebody from the crowd of car drivers. Somebody's private car. If he's going my way, he might give me a lift, and that's what Uber sets up. The Uber app, I send a trip request. I want to go from London to Manchester, say, a long way. That request goes to all the Uber drivers in the locality, people like me, perhaps my brother, and I have a private driver who comes to find me by the roadside. This is a picture taken in Manchester. This is not a conventional taxi. It looks like one, okay, but this is a guy with a car who's making a little bit of money. You pay with a mobile phone, no money, cashless. So it's easy. It's really easy. You pay through your credit card or your bank account over a mobile phone. And the fare, the cost, maybe 40% cheaper, nearly half the cost of a taxi. So it's a big difference. And the Uber company takes about 20% of that. So the consumer pays 40% less, and the Uber company takes about 20% of the fare. You can order a taxi even if you don't know where you are. Global positioning system. If I'm a tourist, I don't quite know where I am in London or in Paris. I don't quite know where I am. My locality, where I am, can be detected because of my phone through a global positioning system. So I might not know Paris or Berlin or Ankara, but the taxi will find me. It's no problem. And a few days ago, Uber was operating in 55 countries, 200 cities, and its last market valuation for this little app was 17 billion US dollars in about 8-9 years, from nothing. So this is a very powerful, very successful, tiny little app for the tourist. It's for domestic and international tourists. Anyone can use it. You can select a vehicle, an economy vehicle, or maybe a luxury vehicle, maybe a Rolls Royce. You can message a driver on the way, see you in 5 minutes. How much will the fare be? They'll give you an estimate of the fare. Every destination has clear pricing. You know how much money you're going to pay. You know. And afterwards, you can even put feedback about your experience. It was a good driver, a comfortable car, it was clean. So you can put experience, you can post experience on the web for the next tourist. And in the past, improvements in transportation have always had a big impact on tourism. Improvements in aircraft, in ships, all forms of transportation have had a big impact on tourism. And we talk about creative disruption in the market for tourism. The market's being disrupted, but it's a creative disruption. It's not just for leisure tourists too. Uber targets the business traveller as well. Today, I'm a business traveller. And they claim your company, don't use a regular taxi, use a private taxi. You might save $1,000 per employee every year. And there's similar applications as well. So there's 6 or 8 similar applications, but Uber is the number one, that's for sure. San Francisco, this is a big shock. The traditional taxis, their use fell by 2/3, primarily because of Uber. So this is a big change in the market. New York, everyone's seen pictures of the yellow taxis in New York. Uber had a big impact, digital economy had a big impact on the traditional taxi. Now in New York there's 14,000 Uber taxis, there's only 13,000 traditional yellow taxis. So this is a big change, a big shift in the market, for good or for bad. And in London, Uber is now a licensed taxi operator, so they're okay. They've been licensed, they're official. And we find things like this. We find things like this on the web. Taxis, they're saying taxis are going out of fashion. You may agree or not, but that's what they're saying. This is from San Francisco. The average number of hires, trips, per traditional taxi, declining over a period of only 2 years. So whether it's good or bad, this is what's happening. And there are competitors too, but Uber is still definitely the number one. Accommodation, Airbnb. This is another app on your phone. This is a global lodging, accommodation, an accommodation website and app. And it mediates between me looking for a bed for the night, accommodation, and a local resident who's got a spare bedroom, or 2 or 3 spare bedrooms. So I'm here, somebody over there has got a spare bedroom, and the app mediates between the two of us. 3 months ago, they had nearly 1 million offers worldwide, 1 million people with spare bedrooms. 192 countries, 34,000 cities. That's huge. 600 of these places were described as castles. And this app has 16 million hits every day. Every day, 16 million hits on the app and the website. It looks a bit like this. We can see a big range of places to stay. This is obviously an unusual place to stay, but it's not a hotel, it's somebody's house, or somebody's apartment, somebody's flat. So to me, this is a revolution of the destination. And this is the sort of advertising that Airbnb puts out. We can imagine a world where you can belong anywhere, where you can feel at home in 192 countries. And this shows a little graphic of the growth of Airbnb in its accommodation operation. The visitor proposition is simple. An inexpensive night's stay. It's probably going to cost you less than a hotel. It's somebody's house, or somebody's apartment, or somebody's holiday home perhaps. And it's novel and interesting. You're not just staying in a big hotel, some big chain hotel. It's a little anonymous. The most recent valuation from a company that didn't exist 10 years ago, $20 billion. I have no idea if that's true, but that's the valuation I saw. And an amusing, a funny little thing, 1 year ago, Marriott said, Marriott International Global Hotel Chain, we're going to add 30,000 bedrooms to our global stock, said Marriott, this big international company. Airbnb, we're going to do that in 2 weeks. We're so popular, your hotel chain is going to take maybe a year. We're going to do it in 2 weeks. That's how popular we are. I'm not here to sell Airbnb, but these are the figures we're looking at. So this Airbnb, they both have unique selling points, unique selling propositions, something that will really grab a certain sort of tourist. For certain visitors, maybe not you, maybe not me. Global brand recognition, the same brand in big cities right around the world. Using internet technology, which obviously is a very fashionable thing to do. Cost savings for the tourist, typically a cheaper taxi, typically a cheaper bed for the night. And something described, not by me, described as household amenities and access to what somebody described as the private sphere. Seeing what people in China really live like. Joining the family in Brazil or the USA. And the potential for what some people are calling authentic local experiences. You're not staying in some big chain hotel that's anonymous. You could be anywhere. You could be, if you're in a hotel room, you could be in New York, or you could be in South Africa, or you could be in Australia. But with Airbnb, you're in somebody's house typically. And it's a more authentic, a more true, maybe, experience. What impact do they have on the tourism industry? I'd like to say much more, but I haven't got much time to say that. But a recent study in Texas said overall, Airbnb reduced hotel revenues as a whole, they calculated as a whole for that state. But particularly it was the budget hotel. the economy hotel at the lower end, which is in the most competition. Business hotels and five-star hotels don't have a problem. It's the budget hotels, the economy hotel, that has the real impact from Airbnb. So overall, they said Airbnb will probably reduce hotel revenues at a destination, but not by a great deal. It's the budget hotel sector where the impact is going to be the greatest. Do they produce new economic activity? Are there new markets? McKinsey, international consultancy company, says yes. Says that these apps, in economic terms, they do boost the economy. I've got 2 more minutes, I think. What are the gains to the overall economy? How do these apps boost the economy? McKinsey said maybe a third from new markets. So new money, new revenue streams, maybe a third for new markets. So there's the boost for the economy. The other 2/3 was from productivity gains, the economic system becoming slightly more efficient, slightly more productive. And that's a quote from McKinsey, based in China, actually. Global Institute. I was going to say a bit more about about this idea of co-creation of value, about the idea of me creating a holiday with a host. If I go to another country for a holiday, I'm buying a holiday, but I'm making that holiday with the people there. I'm co-creating the holiday, the tourist and the host, working together. So a new type of holiday perhaps, whereas in the past, tourists didn't really meet hosts. They didn't really come together. Co-creation, the idea of both the host, the destination creating the holiday, yeah, but also the tourist creating the holiday as well, in somebody else's car, in somebody else's house, talking to people, getting to know them in a much more social manner. And I was going to say how that's going to be a new visitor experience at destinations. But in the last 5 minutes, I'd just like to jump forward a moment. Okay. Yeah. So I was going to talk about these 2 apps, Uber for transport, Airbnb for accommodation. So co-creating value from the resident and the tourist, both creating the tourist experience. Intangible value, so you can't touch it, but it's real encounters, meeting real people. The tourist becoming involved as a participant, not just the tourist being given a product, the tourist actually becoming involved in their holiday. Distinctive experiences, meeting somebody, a real Chinese person, and perhaps their family, for instance. And a different meaning to quality too. These aren't going to be 5-star accommodations, so it's not going to be quality in the old sense. It's going to be quality in a new sense of an experience, a real experience in a different country. Authenticity, once again, something that's a little bit more real. And of course, digital technologies can overcome the language issue as well. Here we have a sign. This is in France, of course. I should think many people can recognize this. You can hold your phone up to the French sign, and the phone will tell you what the sign says. You're using a new Google app which will translate instantly writing on a sign, on a menu, a road sign, in a town. Okay, so Saudi Arabia, the world's highest penetration of Twitter, many Twitter users in Saudi Arabia, given the number of people using the internet. High proportion using Facebook. And I wonder how the digital economy and the things I've been talking about will affect tourist destinations and the tourist experience in Saudi Arabia. Because I can talk about Manchester, the UK, but obviously I'm not knowledgeable about Saudi Arabia. The digital economy can work for domestic tourism as well as it can international tourism. And I know domestic tourism is very important, well, in all countries, but in Saudi in particular. Airbnb in Saudi Arabia, does that exist? There's Airbnb in Saudi Arabia. This is about 2 days ago. So here we have some Saudi Arabian towns, and these are Airbnb offers, digital accommodation offers in Saudi Arabia. Let's have a look at Uber. Uber in this town. So taxis, transportation for tourists. Uber's launched in Riyadh. You can find this on the website. I found this 2 days ago. What impact might Uber have in Riyadh? Ride sharing, digital economy, and the sharing of people's cars. Never have to hail a taxi again. I'm going to finish there just by saying we all know tourism can employ people, underemployed or unemployed people at destinations. It does so in Britain, in France, in Spain. Tourism is very good for employment, particularly young adults, and particularly in countries like Spain, France, Italy. Tourism is a very valuable contribution to the economy. Maybe it could be in Saudi Arabia as well, and this could be one way through which that might happen. So tourism employment in the digital economy. There's a lot of self-employment, people working for themselves, for good or for bad. They don't always need high skill levels. So in Britain, we have people working in tourism who are happy to work in tourism. And they can work part-time hours, work today, not tomorrow. It works really well for some people. And it suits some people's lifestyles. I wonder how well that will work in Saudi Arabia. Thank you, everybody. Certainly. I'm happy to answer questions or start a discussion on this matter. Where are we? Yeah. There we are.
Abdurrahman Saud. Did you find any Arabic website, especially in the travel or industry, in the Arabic language? Did you find? Okay. Did you find any website in Arabic region? Is it very well in worldwide industry? So,
My first language is English, so that was what I had to concentrate on. But I'm sure they exist. Of course, I'm sure they exist. But English is, for better or for worse, it's increasingly the international language. So that was what I was looking at.
Okay, second question. Do you have any statistic about booking reservation or something like this from Arab region?
I don't know, and I don't suppose the companies publish that information. That would be, I guess that would be commercially sensitive information, but it would be very valuable information, sure. What's your guess? Very well.
Alhamdulillah.
Hello, sir. Thank you.
Marketing specialist for all businesses of internet business. Thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you have this day.
Excuse me.
Thank you. It's been great.
الهيئة العامة للسياحة والآثار. ملتقى السفر والاستثمار السياحي.